Hello, Mech fans. This is Duncan Fisher. Hold on firmly to your mana potions, fireballs, and familiars, because you are tuning in to your regularly scheduled episode of the First Circuit Podcast.
And welcome to episode 140 of the First Circuit Podcast. Tonight's host, we have Ian.
Hi.
We have Fighter.
Hi, Biter.
And myself, OLDBOB10025. Tonight's topics are the data center fire in the European Union, events and the free mechs, weapon balance, and upcoming patch and devlogs. All coming up next.
I was trying to do a funny face, but your face was like I couldn't.
I
couldn't bring it over myself.
I could not believe I said tonight's exciting news is the fire, the death and destruction of a company. It's like okay.
Oh no. Today we're gonna do drama first. So
I was hoping my notes would meant EU just meant Europe rather than European Union, but I think it is part of the European Union. But just
it is part of it.
You know,
when somebody says European Union, I associate it with the political body rather than necessarily. Just the broad geographical area.
There are so many freaking things going on there that I don't even know what country's over there. So it's I don't know. Who knows
we know about the American. You don't.
Yeah. We know that kind of stuff.
It's the European servers and thus the European servers.
It's kind of like the states, basically. We all get together, basically, and create a union. Anyways, go on.
Yeah. So anyway, there was a major fire in a data center in Strasbourg, which is eastern France, close to Germany. One of their buildings burned down completely, which apparently also killed all of the Mechwarrior online servers for Europe. They have been able to back them up though, and by now they should be back online, now situated in Frankfurt. So they decided to go to Germany because we're better.
Oh God.
Huh? It's
no one's
just
call me out on
one
this.
way or another for the French servers are going on strike.
Oh yeah.
Thankfully, no injuries. Lots of property damage, but no injuries. So it's a fire that happened. A lot of people were affected. A lot of websites went down. Like for me, one of the interesting parts is that this is one of those data centers where the clients actually manage their own server kind of style. So everyone who buys server space has to make sure they have backups and all those things. So I'd be kind of curious to know how much data was literally lost. Whereas if you buy like Amazon server space, Amazon is going to do all the backups and stuff for you. And if one of their data centers burned down, you'd never notice that anything is even happening. But yeah.
And I'm just curious, did it affect you guys a lot or what happened basically? Just didn't do much?
No, none of the pages that I used were affected. So I didn't know about it besides from the tweets.
Because the first time I actually heard about it, I'm like, oh, okay, Ian's probably, like living in the dark right now in the dark ages and, that kind of thing. So.
Well, it's the internet. It's a distributed network such that one part breaking down is not going to bring down the whole network, and this will not affect too much. As long as the company is large enough, they'll usually have plenty of backups and alternate data centers and servers and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's inconvenient certainly, and the techs will have to do a lot of running around to figure things out. But the people who will be most affected by these are usually just very small businesses. If you are, a small, delivery service or something, just a little cafe with your own website, and you have it hosted on the data server, and you don't have any backups because you're just a small cafe. You're not tech literate. Then suddenly it's all disappeared.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Totally unrelated to Mechwarrior, but I find it interesting that the company is saying they're going to have those servers back up in 2 weeks. Given how impossible it is to find any PC hardware and server hardware right now, that's ridiculously fast.
And it's because of crypto currency, right?
No.
Trying to find the
PC. Shortages. There's a global chip shortage. Crypto mining is playing a major part when it comes to GPUs.
Okay.
But it's far from the whole story. There are a lot of things going on right now.
Okay.
One podcast though.
The people who run the servers, I think they have multiple sites in Europe, and they shut all of them down, probably just to you want to find out what caused the fire before it happens at any other sites.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, that was also the tricky thing, just that they took down their entire service for a while. But obviously, once they figure things out, they can turn on all the other servers again, and yeah, they can go through the process of rebuilding the other one. And that I imagine will take long, but you can always just put the work onto the other servers.
Yeah, so Russ Bullock tweeted out something about playing on the North American server, but can we actually change our servers? Because I don't think we could.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
You
can't
can
change
select
mine.
where you want to play, and Europe just wouldn't work.
Okay.
I believe there were some errors if you didn't change it.
hmm
Then you would get the unable to find game server message
Yeah.
on some occasion.
Okay.
But beyond that, as far as I could tell, most people weren't really affected from it. You just
Okay.
had to switch to NA, which, if you're in Europe, is like 100 millisecond latency, but nothing terrible.
With
Okay.
it being PGI and MWO being a bit of an old game, it's a little worry in my head. It's like, oh, there's a data center fire. Are they gonna, not have things properly backed up? But no, they've done their job properly, so
Yeah, that
Yeah.
it's
was
all good.
my first thought, but thankfully,
Yeah.
it's
They
all
did
good.
fine. So
Yeah,
oh, good.
I
It's
haven't
working
seen
now.
any issues with the new servers, the European servers they put up. No issues whatsoever. No huge disconnects or anything like that. So thus far, yeah, life carries on as normal. Good,
Sure.
good
Yeah.
job from PGI.
Yeah. Definitely.
Let's
Definitely.
carry on as normal. There's a new free Mech and a loot bag event, so that's really cool.
hmm
Yeah. Loot
But
bags.
you've played it the most from the three of us. Do you want to run us through what's going on here?
All right. It's your usual loot bag event. You just get match score and you earn loot bags. And at least I've got a fair number thus far. And it's giving me plenty of MC, cockpit items, C bills, premium time as well. So yeah, all good. It's still in two phases, which we're always a little bothered by. I have to wait until it's the second phase until I get everything through. And the second phase is just the same number of bags as I think the first phase, or very similar.
Mhm.
So you have to really play the latter half of the event, which is quite sad, really. I much prefer it when the first phase is where the majority of the bags are earned. Um, Otherwise, one thing to note is they give away premium time at the very beginning. If you earn 80 match score or above once, you get 7 days worth of premium time.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
just hop on and you get a week's worth of premium time. So it's well worth picking up the second phase, I guess. I need to check the second phase. Actually, does that give premium time?
3 days of premium time. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can get a total of 10 days premium time very easy. And one of the less terrible things about this phase event, the first phase is only a single week, and then they have 3 weeks overlap, 2 weeks? 3 weeks overlap nearly.
Yeah.
So plenty of time in the second phase to just wait until whenever this starts, Tuesday or Wednesday, and just do it all in phase number 2.
hmm
Oh, phase 1. Okay. Yeah. That's not bad. Just play the game. To get 80 match score, I mean, you literally just have to walk on the field and shoot one mech, and that's about it, really.
All right. So what's nice about this event? It's accumulated, so you can earn multiple bags a game. This is always the better system to do it. I believe what's a first-time thing that's happening here is unlimited bonus redeems. If you buy the 200 GSP bundle in the gift store, during the event you get 25 bonus redeems, and apparently you can do this as often as possible.
Okay.
I don't think we've had something like this before, so if you don't want to play, but for some reason you want those 300 loot bags, you can just, I guess, buy this bundle. Bunch
It
of
was
times.
weird. I was seeing a couple of extra grasshoppers already around on the field, and it's like, well, how did you get all 200 loot bags already? And
Probably already
who
had it.
knows? Yeah, it could be that they just already have it. I wonder how many people though just sort of like, oh, I really want the grasshopper now, and so they just buy a bunch of GSP bundles because they're just it,
Yeah.
it gets an impulse buy going.
So yeah, the 200 GSP bundle is $10. So if you're short 25 bonus redeems before the end of the event, you can, I guess, pick up one of those.
Okay.
All right.
Then you get the usual one-time bonus redeem for the striker pack.
Yeah.
And yeah, rewards by them.
all
I
right.
was interrupting you, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
what I was going to move on to. But yeah, was it 50 for the cicada warhorn? But by bigging, you already get I've got a lot of Triskelion warhorns and stuff already. But yeah, warhorn, bolt-ons for grasshoppers. But yeah, at 200 loot bags, you get a grasshopper 5H. I think 200 is, that's a fair amount of gameplay, but it's not unfair. You don't have to go all 300. You have to max out the event to finish. You only need to do 2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically 20,000 match score or damage. Like a combination of those.
Oh, they
Yeah,
got the mountain
and
lion camo.
That seems like a bit more than for the Huntsman, but it's not terrible.
this is still better than we've seen from previous loot bag events. Sometimes where it was like you earn all 300 and you earned like a camo scheme or a paint color, and it was
Yeah.
like, really, I did all this for a color. I mean, colors are worth a fair amount, but it's not a sparkling thing at the end of the rainbow.
Gotta
Whereas,
get that beautiful mountain lion pattern after
Oh,
hundreds
God.
of hours of grinding.
The
yeah,
best. The best.
whereas a whole grasshopper, a heavy mech with mech bay included, that's nice.
I mean,
And
it's a lot
yeah.
easier than what they were before. So, I mean, the average player can actually get this without too much work.
I
That's a
do
good
also
thing.
like that the extra bonuses are built around the grasshopper, just giving it the bolt-ons and the camo scheme.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. And ultimately, if you're a overachiever, you can also get a camo pattern for your fancy grasshopper. Out of these, yeah, there are some good ones in there. So
Okay.
overall, seems like really good
Yeah.
event.
It's not bad.
There are some additional events that are part of the like event phases. You can also get a decal and some GSP for 7 victories. And for phase 1, you can get a color pigment.
Yes,
What's that? Is that pink?
I'm assuming it's a pink color. I already redeemed it, but I haven't.
What is pigment?
Yeah.
I have to
Blue?
search and find it. Pigment
It is
is
not a normal color.
Yeah.
I would have to
Alright.
check in game.
Yes.
All right.
No big deal.
So there you go. Lootback event. This time you can get a free mech. Grasshopper 5H is, I believe, the normal laser vomit grasshopper, one of the better ones.
All of them are laser bomb.
Well,
Yeah. Not bad. It's a free mech, so be able to go ahead and do some different things with it, and just like the huntsman, like last time. Yeah, cool. I got a huntsman. Now I got a grasshopper. So every month they plan to give out a mech each time, right? Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, every month a mech.
Yeah,
And
so
and
that's
I do like that they're experimenting a bit with how to give away the mech, changing it
true.
up a bit.
Yeah.
What do you guys think so far? The Huntsman event or the Grasshopper event? Which one is better?
Grasshopper, obviously. I mean, you get loot bags.
Yeah, the loot bags are so much more value to the player,
Yeah.
rewarding you for just playing the game. The Huntsman event, you had to jump through all those hoops, and at least for lower level players, those could be quite tricky to get through or trickier. Whereas, as long as you play enough, even if you're a complete potato, you'll eventually get your grasshopper.
Yep, fair enough. Personally, I think I like purely from the mech perspective, I like the Huntsman event a bit more because you had to complete different kind of things. So it's more of a challenge rather than the Grasshopper just play the game. But obviously, loot bags are so much value that
Yeah, much more value.
If you can decide, you obviously pick the loot bag event.
Yeah, just looking
Okay.
up. Grasshopper 5H is quite a popular variant. It has the 7 energy hard points, 10% heat. That just allows you to do a whole bunch of laser boating.
Okay. So it's a laser vomit mech, and get it for pretty much almost free just for playing the game. That's all you got to do. Play the game, get free stuff. Like most of the Mechwarrior online things. Okay, so and what do we have next?
moving
Alright.
on, I believe Bida wants to have his little segment on weapon balance.
Okay, I'll be right back then.
So
Alright.
I'm gonna take it to Egg.
Okay,
Well,
go ahead.
I had shared with you guys I had done my own document
Mhm.
on weapon balance, and I had posted it in the forums because, of course, PGI were asking for intel gathering. We will soon see the patch, probably next week or something soon. But this isn't necessarily about making PGI uh, think the same way I do or anything like that. But the idea is just sort of I thought it was when we have one of these off weeks, we could actually just have a little chat about weapon balance and all
Mhm.
the other things. And I tried to make it a bit more accessible by just trying to rank the various different weapon systems on page 2 to how I sort of feel. Um, which ones are very good performers and which ones are kind of underperforming and which ones are just sort of solid. Um, but yeah, to make this more just, without going into depth about every single weapon system, what I sort of say in the preface, and I think this is my feeling of it overall about how the MWO has been balanced historically, is the very first paragraph there. I say weapon balance has some of the longest reaching effects in MWO. You can put a quirk on a mech, but it could still be a really crummy mech. Like a spider with 2 energy in the CT. An extra 10% cooldown isn't necessarily going to change the game, but 10% faster cooldown on something like a medium pulse laser, on in the sphere side or something like that, can radically change, how good medium pulse laser mechs are, and they can push out other close range builds, and they change, what is meta and what isn't. So it's interesting that they're first going into weapon balance, because weapon balance, in my view, is it's really fiddly because there's so many weapons in the game. There's a lot of overlap, and if you do a slight change here or there, it will change one variant, and that one variant might become incredibly powerful. Whereas quirks, by contrast, allow you to just tweak one or two underperforming mechs, and you can sort of predict if, hey, this Innisphere mech has only one missile hardpoint. It's only got so many options.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that was just what I've seen some people like from the community. I think there's we had a little discussion with Matt in our last podcast. Someone saying, hey, there's a community document that's suggesting a huge, wide-ranging series of changes, for the weapons, for the mech agility, for the mech scale, for how mask works, for a lot of features in the game. And they're saying, why doesn't PGI just implement this all at once? And my feeling is just that that's actually that attitude is what's been kind of the issue of MWO for quite some time in terms of balance. Is that we will say, oh, agility is a bit strong. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to do engine desync in one big, huge sweep. Oh, we're going to, we think weapon specialized quirks aren't too good an idea. So we're just going to go lazily through the entire spreadsheet and change all of them at once
Mhm.
without properly balancing the mechs out. So it's like, oh, there's a blackjack with AC2 quirks. What I'll do is I'll just get rid of most of the AC2 cooldown. And so now it doesn't and you don't even give anything in return. So it's just, well, yeah, there's less reason to take AC2s, but there's even less reason to take the mech overall. Like all you did was kill it. And this is the problem when we just do these huge, wide, sweeping changes, is that the game is incredibly complicated, and small little changes can have huge, far-reaching effects. And I feel um, at least going forward, when we're going to see the patch notes next week, and as we discuss things in the future, at least, yeah, my viewpoint is that, yeah, we could totally talk about what weapons could do a little push up, but I think I quite like, or I want to encourage PGI to take a cautious approach, because ultimately, you need to be able to figure out how to fine tune the game and fiddle around with it before you start doing these huge, sweeping, and clumsy changes that everybody keeps pulling for.
Well, yeah, basically, like a perfect example would be the Locust 1V and the Hunchback 4J. Pretty much,
Hmm.
they're useless now. The 1V, it's like it was really cool to have a large pulse laser, and you fire it at 60% cooldown. It was really cool. And then as soon as the skill change came in, you're now I think like 35% or something. And the 4J was a 65% cooldown for the Lerm 10s, and now it's like I don't know 30%. So like it totally nerfed it, and so you don't want to have like a just like you said, a huge change of different things that are going on in the game, because then it basically then you forget about that. Oh yeah, the 1v later on that gets totally nerfed and no one plays it like anymore. And just like you said, yeah, you want to do small changes, very small minor changes, and see how it works, and then test it, change it. Basically if it needs to be changed, it's too powerful, and it didn't work that way. And and PGI just had some issues doing it big sweeping changes, which screws up the game, and everyone goes ballistic and cries and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically what happens. And you don't want that.
There's one more point to this that's really important to consider. If you, as a community member, suggest to just like here's the list of changes that the community together has assembled, go and do this. I, as someone who wasn't part of that process, has no idea what's in the document, and quite honestly, I'm not gonna bother spending the hours upon hours that would be necessary to really understand what they're suggesting and what the implications of that is. So that's the main reason why I always am very skeptical when the community brings up major documents, because I frankly don't have the time to take the in-depth look at it that would be necessary for me to say this is a good change or this is overall a bad direction for the game.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have this document that many people are referencing, saying like this is the community suggestion, and I'm sitting there like, no, this is the suggestion that a few people have assembled. Sure, they probably took feedback from a lot of people, but ultimately there's going to be a very small number of people who actually understand the whole thing in all its implications. And that's for me the main reason why I'm like, PGI should do the very small and incremental changes, and combined with the fact that I think the game is fairly well balanced, so I don't see much reason for major overhauls anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Just little tiny things. Let's say, like ballistic weapons, they change the velocity, and so basically that will depend. Like, I think Matt Newman was talking about the AC-10 and how he's changing velocity and kind of screw around with it, and that's fine. You want to do little changes, little incremental things. See how the velocity works. Is it getting overpowered where people are just taking that with a bunch of velocity skills, and then the thing becomes like a freaking Gauss cannon, like that, that kind of stuff. And you don't want that. You want little changes, go from there, and little changes go from there, and little changes go from there. Doing big things,
Yeah,
it
so
sucks everything. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly, yeah. It's like in my head, okay, so you're increasing ballistic velocity. It depends very much how much you feel all the different autocannons need it. Like AC2s are very powerful in the game right now, and they increasing their velocity will just make them even better at longer range. You can more accurately focus down components or make sure you hit your target. So I don't think that is a very warranted change. The thing as well, with just in general, with buffing ballistic velocity, is it's going to help heavier mechs, of course. Light mechs just can't really take that many DACA cannons
No.
or auto cannons. You're not really often shoving an AC5 or an AC10 in your Herbie. You could do it. You could do AC20 as well. But yeah, and there's also mentioning Urbies, at least there's also ballistic velocity, like 20% or something like that on Urbies, that also will stack with these changes. But yeah, in the end, at least in general, looking past silly, very quirky Urbies, if you buff up ballistics, you're going to see heavier mechs, DACA, focusing center torsos being much more of a thing. That hey, I can just take a bunch of AC5s, AC10s, whatever, and more easily blow apart light mechs, for example. And that'll just mean light mechs have a harder time getting their work done. And that's just the knock-on effects of increasing velocity. Now, maybe that's a warranted change if you feel that the bigger mechs, heavies and assaults aren't doing too well. But right now, I feel like heavies and assaults are actually doing pretty gosh darn well. Like I call it turret warrior online. And that's partly just because a lot of pilots just want to become a big gunboat, and there's a lot of DACA already on the field. I think what we were a little surprised about, like when Matt mentioned it, was like we expected there was only really one big standout case that needed more velocity, and that was the AC20, because the Innisphere AC20 is so slow moving and short ranged.
Yeah.
It is not worth if you're investing in a short range, high damage autocannon, you might as well just go LB20 or heavy Gauss, or hell, just LB10s or racks, anything like that. Just AC20s are really kind of lackluster right now. You barely ever see them. There's a couple of mechs that are quirked for them that you sometimes see them, but even those mechs, after the great nerfing of specialized quirks, just aren't quite what they are. So yeah,
The great nerfing of the mechs. Ah,
of specialized mechs
sorry.
because you know
Yeah.
yes.
Back in the day when the mechs were good, now they got nerfed. It's like,
Yeah. And I think that we'll have to wait and see. I think
Yeah.
from what we've seen, what was it, the Gulag? They did suggest increase autocannon velocities, and it does make some sense. But it will encourage heavier mechs, to be better performers, and that might just help push mediums and lights out of the game. If they do other changes, like just for example, I saw at the top of the list they have like small lasers. They're increasing their alpha strike and other things like same for mediums as well. Um, the thing is, small lasers are a funny kind of weapon. You don't see them that often, but they do actually have an impact on the game if you buff them too much. Let's say, for the sake of argument, I double the damage of small lasers. What's that going to affect? Well, there's a lot of lights with tiny, small, lots of energy hardpoints that could take a boatload of small lasers. And they could absolutely dominate up close. There's also like mechs like LRM boats and things that want to take backup weapons. This means if you're an SRM brawler trying to push a learn boat, you might be taking way more in return. You might probably still win the fight. You have better performing weapons. You can probably outbrawl the opponent. But if you buff small lasers like this, and smalls are already in a good spot, I put them at a B tier on my thing. I think they're pretty solid. Like they're already really heat efficient energy weapons for what they are. And the fact that they have a low alpha strike still gives SRMs and other more dedicated, real, tonnage heavy weapons that are made for close range a chance to outperform them. They're really only supposed to be backup weapons. But if you buff them up too much because, I don't really feel like I ever use smalls, well, indirectly you might, at least in quick play, it all depends on what mode we're talking about, but in quick play, if you buff up the small lasers, then it makes it even harder for your assassin to jump on top of the learn boat, because the learn boat will actually take a bit more chunks out of the assassin before he goes down, and that just doesn't, makes it not such worth the risk.
Yeah. You know.
But yeah,
Alright, so
Yeah.
weapon balance, feedback gathering is still ongoing. You can still add the forum thread at this point has 27 pages. So if you want to read up on the discussion, there is obviously plenty of that.
Mhm.
And we're going to start seeing the first few changes within the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't really know what to expect besides the teased velocity change of Innisphere Ballistics. So I'm sitting here without any additional information or any prejudice. I'm just going in blindly, and I'm excited for whatever happens.
I mean, change is good, so I'm just like, well, okay, cool. It changed, awesome. Basically, now if you change lore, that's when my ears perk up and like, oh yeah, lore, cool. That kind of thing. But like, I mean, the weapon balances and all kind of stuff was like, yeah, okay, cool, man. I'll just go shoot things. That's how I am. I'm not a big chart warrior guy.
I'm just kind of torn. Like on the one hand, I want a improvement to actual balance and keeping the game stable and keeping everyone happy. On the other hand, I'm kind of hoping for an overtunement, something that's completely ridiculous and gonna make the game ridiculous and fun for a few days before the hotfix.
Well, like the missiles that have a velocity of 10,000, and remember that a long time ago?
That was amazing.
Missile cooldown 10,000%.
Yeah, cooldown 10,000%. Yeah.
That was awesome.
One thing is, at least to mention, is we often see from community, it's easy to suggest sort of small numerical changes because that's easy enough an idea to spread on a change on the spreadsheet. Is there any kind of changes you feel that might be warranted for just more radical shifts in how the weapons should be used? For example, at least flamers were useless for quite some time until PGI rebalanced them, for better or for worse, to actually make them useful.
Yeah. I don't know. I play the game just to play the game for fun. I don't really sit there and go like, I do a little bit of the chart warrior in my head while I build my mechs. Like, okay, this would be cool at this range and doing this kind of thing. But I don't really sit there and figure out like the 10 millimeters is going to be this and blah blah.
That's
this
what I'm saying. That
like
we're
chart
not talking
warriors.
about small minute changes. The fact was, before flamers, they were mostly a visual effect. Like they
Yeah.
didn't even really heat up the enemy mech.
Yeah.
And so PGI said, this is the point is they're supposed to have a role of heating up the enemy. We're going to make it so they have a real heating effect. And, that made them useful, but also really trolly. But, that's just at least now they actually have a role in the game. And for what it is, I put them as C tier because they're okay. But, at least they have a purpose now. Before I would have said they're D or E tier because they were just, a
Yeah.
visual effect that just mildly hurt the enemy. What I would bring up, at least in terms of weapon balance, is I hear a lot of people talk about is obviously things like LRMs. They can be incredibly potent on particularly on lower tiers, but across the tiers if you play them right. And I think due to the fact that they fire directly, it's just so difficult to balance the potential amount of damage they do because almost with every other weapon system, you have to expose your face to shoot the enemy. You have to risk being shot to shoot them. But LRMs, somebody knocks only a 100-tonner
Yeah.
and on polar highlands, and that 100-tonner's dead. There's nothing they can
Well,
do,
well,
and
the
the
whole
LRM mechs are completely safe.
well, the problem that basically, like kind of think about this a couple times, but like lerms, there's so many different balanced anti-lerm tactics that you can do. Hide behind their mechs, AMS systems, rocks. Basically, plus also the damage is not one location; it's spread around a whole bunch of different parts of your body. You get Artemis, you get tag, like all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people don't use that, and so you just have like lerm boats that just fire lerms just because and do to do mass amounts of damage to a big area, which it doesn't really there's so many things against lerms that it doesn't need a nerf. It doesn't need it. It just there's so many things you could do against it. There's so many balances to stop it from happening. But
So that's the thing. You can fiddle with all the little numbers, but ultimately, as I'm saying, it can do ridiculously good amount
Yeah.
of damage in the right circumstances, and a lot of other circumstances, it can do jack squat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be a very all or nothing weapon because it's very conditional when it can get its damage in, and if
Yeah.
you're firing it directly, it's kind of It's okay.
Well,
uh,
they did change it where if you do have line of sight, it does go straight basically instead of like
yes.
it does like it does better positioning damage, right?
Mhm.
On the mech, correct? If you shoot
Yeah.
it like head on, yeah. So
Better spread.
yeah, better spread. So there's a lot of things, yeah. Just like you said, it could be good, or it could be horribly. It was like I played some games where my lerms didn't even hit. I'm like, well, this sucks.
Yep.
Type thing. Or I'm playing in the city, so it's like, okay, crap, this blows. And so like polar highlands, certain circumstances you could do really good, but the problem is though, like you get the few people that go out in the middle of nowhere, they get tagged or narked, and then they get learned to death, and they cry on the forums about like, oh, this should be changed. And it's like, no, you did something stupid. Don't go in the middle of nowhere and be shot by tag or like narc and then get destroyed by lerms. It's certain situations will affect it, and certain situations will actually kill it. So just figure out what it is.
Yep. So yeah, as I suggest in my document, at least, I think lerms are in an okay enough spot as it is, and I don't really feel comfortable suggesting any real value changes because of the fact of how variable their effects can be on the game because of direct and indirect fire.
Yeah.
And the only real way to balance LRMs in my head is you make them like ATMs, that they aren't actually able to arch so high over cover. That way they fire like ATMs, like most other direct fire weapons, and that way you can more easily compare them because indirect fire is such a potent weapon if you're
Yeah.
given the time and open space, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. So yeah. Other things I mentioned, at least tag, I think is way too situational right now in the game.
Yeah.
Its main bonus is a morale benefit to the person using it. um,
But it's so hard to
and
keep it on it though, man. Come on. It's so hard to like, especially like say a locust or a whatever basically. It's so hard to keep it on it, direct it towards it to do the extra damage to have the benefit of the 1 ton. And
So it doesn't affect spread anymore. It doesn't affect lock on. They made tag, if you remember, they made it a team play tool so that if you put tag on a target, there's not the penalty for indirect locks. So LRM mechs can quickly lock onto that target and kill that target.
Yeah.
So it's very much with the mindset of trying to be, there's a spotter and the lerms make use of the spotter. But that still hasn't really been played into. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of helping indirect LRMs because it's just so unfun to be killed that way.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You know,
definitely.
that's the biggest problem just always with LRMs, with narc and tag and spotting and UAVs, is sometimes you can just be deaded from these spotting tools. But people often try and take tag to help themselves out, but it doesn't actually help if like a stealth mech gets too close to you or there's too many ECM mechs, so you can still be jammed and the tag won't have an effect. And if it's intermediate range, you should already have a lock just normally. And at least if you're using a lock-on weapon, often you have to, like if you're using LRMs or something, you have, if there's a lerm mech at 400 meters, a stealth mech at 400 meters, you have to hold the tag on long enough to acquire the lock and long enough for the missiles to actually hit the target.
Yeah.
Which is a long bloomin' face time. So it's a really really unreliable tool. And I feel at least the fact that it can be jammed, it makes it not even a great fallback for lock-on mechs. So I feel like tag could perhaps be a little bit redressed. Ultra autocannons, last one. I think a lot of people mentioned, at least it's not very fun, the whole jamming mechanic. Just it's pure roll of the die. I had suggested, at least in my document, I thought it would always be interesting. I think others have, of course, suggested, like, the idea that you could do stuff like it double taps in the first burst, and then it reloads one shell, and then, it takes 2 cooldowns to double tap again.
That's actually a good idea. I like that one. But, basically that's why you take mechs with a negative 40% chance to jam, and then you take the skill points. I think it brings up another 10%.
You're only taking UACs though, like if you have a lot of tonnage because you're a clan,
Yeah.
or because you have a UAC jam chance because when you're in a sphere.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of times, a lot of people just from a lot of tiers, racks just are so much more consistent and get the DPSs out. And UACs they shoot once and then you take a roll of the dice, and that inconsistency feels really punishing. And I would be interested if people could throw together a whole bunch of different ideas. Here's one, for example. If you double tap, you have a longer cooldown. So if you have let's just say 2-second cooldown when you fire the autocannon normally, and if you double tap, it has a 3-second cooldown or a 4-second cooldown. So you get the damage out quickly, but then you take a longer time to fire again.
I don't know. Basically, like, we'll have to see what they do for the weapon challenges and
I'm just saying, I don't think they'll probably do changes like that. I don't think they'll necessarily do things like make clan autocannons actually fire single shells for a change, like so they have a purpose.
Yeah,
but I feel in some ways changes like this could radically change the game and make it interesting. And I would only want to do that in one patch and make sure it's all balanced and appropriate. But
well, that's why you test them out.
That's what I'm much more interested in than just increasing damage here, the velocity a little bit there, and just shifting the balance a little bit more towards Turret Warrior Online.
Yeah. Okay, so balances coming soon, changes coming soon. What's the other one? We got something else coming on.
Roadmap and Death Relog last topic today. Yeah, I've been staying quiet because I'm not really a good person to talk to about balance. I just pick stuff that I've been playing for 10 years, and that's how I outfit my mechs.
Yes.
All right. So there has been another Death Relog number 2 for February.
I think
believe
this one's coming.
There has been a vlog that we hadn't covered because we were talking with Matt at the time, but they're most
right.
yeah. I do like their posts because they just have the on the website they have their own cliff notes.
Yeah.
And that covers very effectively with just what they talked about in the thing.
So definitely, honestly, the content of this Death Relog is not too exciting, but just the way they're doing it now, where they have proper timestamps. They have timestamps on YouTube, and doing the Death Relog, if I can start it real quick, They even have notes up at the top. So just on a quick glance, if you scroll through the video, you can see what they're currently talking about. So I think they're doing it really well now. And even though I don't listen to it like the second it comes out and I'm super excited for it, I do think it's a great tool of communication. And
Yeah.
it has vastly improved from what they've done in past months and years.
Yeah, true. I'm the
Yep.
same boat too. It's nice what they're doing, and it definitely does help, and kind of gets us like just like you said. I don't like second it comes out start watching it. I wait a couple days or like when I got some time to go and watch it because an hour of your time. Like thank you for watching our podcast, by the way. For like like an hour at a time. Thank you very much. It's kind of much like unless you're doing something like in the background or something like that.
Seems a bit hypercritical. But yeah, out of this episode, there were a few things that stood out. They're talking a lot about how stuff was received, both for the Striker Booster Pack and for the changes for the last pack, which is nice to see that they're reflecting on what they've been doing and on community feedback. They talked about the roadmap, giving us a tease that the roadmap will receive an update soon. Well, obviously there are a lot of blanks in here still, and probably also some things that they have to move and shift around. And the last item I found interesting was a new player pack, for which they will soon open a Intel Gathering post. So we're gonna talk about it once the post is live, but yeah, new player pack is one of the things we've been passionate about, and that's exciting for me.
From what I understand, the new devlog or the new patch notes will be coming out Monday. So when this video comes out, that's when they're gonna have the patch notes. We'll probably be talking about it the week after or the week after that or something like that, depending where the next episode for 141 is. So just so you know, we'll be talking about that. Yeah, it kind of sucks. So it's like, yay, it's coming out, but we already did our podcast. We did, damn it. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Biter.
Yeah, Biter, Bob, do you have anything to add about the devlog?
Stuff.
I of course have to bring up the fact that they mentioned, the people noticed Caustic Valley has a time of change
Yeah.
finally, and they say they're going to fix it in the next patch, which is like, no, how could you? It was beautiful being the only one with different times of day.
It was unique.
One thing they did change or planning on change is balance like AMS match score values. I like once I need to get a match score or a high match score, I usually just pop on some AMS or play my anti missile mechs, and I got my match score no problem. So they're probably going to be changing that. That's one thing that I think I'm kind of like no, but staffing update, roadmap. It's standard stuff.
On the match scoring thing, it's very interesting. Like, it's really hard to tell in MWO because you can't tell what is good damage, what's bad damage.
Yeah.
And AMS, you only get earned match score when you're helping a teammate being saved from missiles if it's aimed at somebody else.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, it's kind of funny. Like, okay, sure, you're making the enemy less effective. Well, what about like if you shield effectively? Well, if you shield effectively, you take a bunch of damage, giving the enemy a lot of damage. A lot of damage on the enemy team gives them match score, which means, you are getting, like, you and your team are getting less PSR gain effectively by you shielding well. That if you're the Atlas leading the charge and you get your left arm blown off, your right arm blown off, every component is stripped down to the bone, and it's like, hey, thanks, jackass, you just gave the enemy a whole bunch of match score. Now they're going to gain in the match because you wanted to win.
That is such an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So match score is always going to be a bit anachronistic, but yeah, perhaps it's just best that you only reward people for the damage they do out. But yeah, it's really hard to also try and reward people for shielding with AMS and also for like tanking. Because sometimes if you just charge out alone and tank and die, obviously you aren't actually helping winning the team win the match. But if the Atlas is leading a charge, then he's obviously the match player. He's the one who actually got you the win. But you can't tell the difference just from the numbers alone.
Well, like maybe do it like this. So like you gain match score for tanking, but the longer you live in the game, you get more match score. So if you just run out
But the
and
Atlas that
YOLO,
leads the charge will not last long.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like, if you just charge out YOLOing, I got, do that kind of thing, and you die, you're not gonna get as much match score. Like, until, like, let's say you're an Atlas and you live halfway through the match, you get much more, or a times multipliers. I don't
That's
know.
still a terrible idea because no one's gonna push. If they're gonna get
Oh
punished
yeah,
for
yeah,
dying
true,
early,
true,
you're not gonna
true.
push, and you're
Mhm.
not gonna take
You're
the
right.
lead and
You're
push.
right.
You're gonna wait for someone else.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
you would have to come up with some fancy algorithm that figures out, when I was taking damage, I had X number of teammates nearby, and they were doing X amount of damage whilst I was taking damage. Therefore, they were making use of my health.
yeah. That's a
And
better way. Yeah.
you could do something like that, but it's probably very complicated.
True, true. I know they're doing some things. So, like, anything is good. For them working on this and new staffing. I don't know who they'll be bringing up for staffing wise for the roadmap. So I don't know. It's been good. Any
They talked
change
about
is
bringing
fine.
back some people from Mechwarrior 5, which is something where they earlier were like, we're probably not gonna get resources from the Mechwarrior 5 team.
Mhm.
And I believe they, I forgot the names, but they confirmed 1 or 2 people from the Mechwarrior 5 team who are returning to Mechwarrior Online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, get them
I
from
think
there.
Alright.
I remember Paul's name being mentioned. He was the one who did bans in the past. I think he he at least is around offering some help in future balance changes and discussions.
Okay.
We'll wait and see. Since
Yeah.
I don't really remember right now either.
Alright, so last but not least, let's take a quick look at the patch notes, since this is the first episode of March, and there are some things that are not done for March. Please keep in mind, roadmap is to be changed soon, so this might not be completely accurate. But the few things, there are apparently 10 things that are slated for March. I'm gonna see if I can scroll through the first one. Update trial mechs and loadouts. They said they're working with JC on new trial mechs.
Okay.
I'll keep out my personal bias. Yeah, okay. New trial mechs.
New player tutorials.
Yep, new player video tutorials. I don't think we've heard anything about it. Bob, you were in contact with Darren.
I haven't heard
Anything
anything basically.
community?
Like, I'm gonna redo some of my videos, like, anyways, for new beginners, 2021, because like every time I got 2 so far, like 2 as far as, like, from 19 or from not 19, from 2019 or 2017, that I did another one at 2019, and now I got to do one at 2021. So I'm gonna redo mine, but Darren hasn't said anything about it.
The year is
Yeah.
1997.
Yeah,
Mechwarrior 3
yeah,
has
yeah. I know. Yeah, I was like,
Hello and
19
welcome.
what?
This is OldBob10025, and welcome to my new player guide to Mechwarrior 3.
So
Yeah,
for those
exactly.
videos, I think they wanted to do something akin to like the Intel gathering, where it's a call out to the community. Hey, we have an idea. We want to make this video. Could you guys make a bunch of this, and
Yeah.
we'll pick whichever ones we like, and we'll incorporate it in some way. They
Yeah.
haven't done that yet. It's still halfway into the month. Who knows? And also, things are going to be delayed a little bit with the whole EU service thing, no doubt,
Yeah.
just by a couple of days.
Okay.
Lowering the volume for intro movies. Yep. The weapon changes already ongoing and slated for the next patch. AMS match squad, I've talked about it in the dev vlog. New player packs and the new bundles. We've been seeing those. And a new free mech. So,
Every month, yeah. They've been doing that.
not
so.
too much slated for March. But
Yeah.
hey, it's slow going, but it's going up.
It's coming. Stuff is coming. Stuff is getting there. So is that it for the episode 140? Is that all? Okay. So thank you for watching. That was episode 140 of the First Circuit Podcast. Tonight's host is Ian.
Hello and bye-bye.
And Biter.
Larg.
And myself, OldBob10025. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everything you guys do to support the community. And we'll see you on the battlefield.